Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do, but it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you, when judgment comes for you, tell me what you gonna do, when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you, 'cause it's gonna come for you.
Making it for water, easy, see something Charlie. Little boo God's got him, and I'm gonna miss everybody out of row and flow like eggs. Looked at a wild flag and pray for dust, and they play too deep for being sad. Little legs I got to be. Tell me your feature deceased, would it please? Marry me by my grand, when you can go follow
God bless you, working on the plan to heaven. Follow the Lord all 24/7 days.
Back on Wrestling Network. Welcome back to the CrosUp, your weekly look back at the week that was in professional wrestling. This week I'll be running through the results and happenings from Rampage on December 6th to SmackDown on December 13th, as well as the NXT Deadline premium live event and TNA's Final Resolution special event show that they had this past Friday. We'll start with Rampage. We open with a Continental Classic match between Kazuchika Okada and Mark Briscoe, where Okada takes the win with the Rainmaker via pinfall. This gives Okada 4 points in the Blue League. I believe that kept Briscoe at 0. So that has not gained a victory yet, but that will change throughout the recording here. But after that, we get Chris Jericho. He comes off of commentary. He has his cowboy hat on for some reason, and he addresses Matt Cardona, who will be his number one contender for his Ring of Honor World title at Final Battle. Jericho is not happy that Cardona touched his hat because that isn't what native New Yorkers do. Cardona then comes out to interrupt, says he's always ready, which is how he lives his life. He's coming to Final Battle to prove himself right, but Jericho says no matter what, Cardona is still just Zack. So kind of going back to Zack Ryder there, and then they kind of battle, and then Brian Keith makes up the difference and kind of runs in to help, and him and Jericho beat Cardona down to end the segment. We then get Daniel Garcia defeating the Beast Mortos via pinfall with a jackknife cover. This gives Daniel Garcia 4 points in the Blue League as well. And at the end, I'll kind of run through the point totals for the Continental Classic at the end. But yeah, he has 4 points after that. I'll kind of fill it in throughout. I may not run it down at the end, but by the time I get to the end of the recording, I'll kind of let everybody know what everybody has. But we then get the Vendetta, which is Taya Valkyrie and Deonna Purrazzo. They defeat Ella Elizabeth and Freya States when Purrazzo makes Elizabeth tap to the armbar. And then we get Ricochet defeating Commander via pinfall after hitting the Spirit Gun. This gives Ricochet 3 points in the Gold League. So a bunch of Continental Classic matches and a couple of squashes and a big segment for Jericho and Cardona is pretty much everything that happened on Rampage. But Briscoe and Okada out of those Continental Classic matches would be my favorite out of all of them, and would be the best match for me on Rampage. I'll go ahead and say, all of these Continental Classic matches are pretty good to really good in-ring matches. So none of them are going to be particularly bad, but they just, and some people and me have had a conversation earlier in the week. They just feel very exhibition-y, and they don't really have much to them. So they're not going to finish highly in like a top 5 for me at the end of the show, like a match. It'll be a lot of Continental Classic matches just because they're really good, and a lot of the stuff that happened this week was kind of building towards some special episodes of stuff and PLEs and stuff like that. But they just lack a little something to them that is kind of lost within a tournament like this, because it's just a lot of exhibition matches, it seems. But all of them are very good because they have a lot of talented guys in these matches, but they don't really have that emotion that maybe some people are looking for in a match like that. But we'll go to Collision from there. Darby Allin opens the show in a Continental Classic match where he defeats Commander via pinfall with a crazy roll-up combination that he comes up with. This gives him 3 points in the Gold League. Renee is then with Don Callis and Takeshita backstage. They reflect on how business is booming with the Don Callis family. Callis bigs Takeshita up big time, and then Powerhouse Hobbs comes in and arrives. Hobbs says Callis clearly forgot his number and forgot that he existed. Hobbs wants the international title, and he wants to take everything from everyone who has ever wronged him. Callis says he deserves a shot, but Takeshita has bookings all over the world, and they're pretty busy. And then Hobbs grabs him and says, well, get back to me when you know something. We then get Willow Nightingale. She defeats Serena Deeb via pinfall following the Babe with the powerbomb. This advances her into the finals against Jamie Hayter for a spot in the International Women's Cup match at Wrestle Dynasty. We then get Renee. She's with Thunder Rosa, asking her about Mariah May and Mina Shirakawa's match. Rosa reminds everyone that she's beaten both May and Mina, and she thinks she deserves a title shot. She talks about how the division is alive and well, and she will scratch and claw and fight her way back to the title. We then get the Death Riders. They're out. Moxley, Pac, Yuta, and Shafir kind of make their way to the ring. Moxley grabs the mic. He wants to talk to the people who don't want him to be the AEW champion. He says there isn't a single soul in this building that wants to be champion. They say they do, but they really don't. They aren't willing to make the sacrifices. They want to hold up the belt and take pictures with it, but none of them can handle the responsibility, and it's Moxley's responsibility to protect it from them. He says Jay White is a child, and he doesn't know the first thing about being a champion. He talks about Hangman. He says he will never sniff being a champion again. And then he talks about Orange Cassidy not being the guys his peers hoped he would be because he wasn't the one in the prophecy. Moxley then says his only regret is that they let him leave New Jersey with his skull intact. So, good grief. Moxley really going in on his title challengers at World End. Moxley then says this is just once, and he means what he says. If Orange Cassidy pisses him off one more time, he'll take him out for good. And then Orange Cassidy obviously comes out. He makes his way and goes face to face with Moxley. He pulls the microphone out of his jacket. He says he can live without being the AEW World Champion. What he can't live with is Moxley as AEW World Champion. He says he'll do whatever it takes and won't stop until Moxley is not champion any longer. The only way that he stops him is if Moxley the only way to stop Orange Cassidy is if Moxley kills him. Cassidy then throws the mic and his sunglasses at Mox, takes his shirt off and throws that too. Orange Cassidy is then begging him to make the first move, and then Marina Shafir smacks him with the briefcase, and now all of the Death Riders kind of pounce onto him. And then obviously nobody comes out to help him as the Death Riders continue to kind of beat him down. And then they come back from break and they're actually still beating him down. And FTR is cutting a promo in the backstage. They talk about running tag team wrestling for the better part of the last 10 years. They talk about at Fight for the Fallen, there's going to be a simulcast that's going to have some fundraising stuff for the Hurricane Helen victims and stuff like that in Asheville, North Carolina. But they get distracted by the sound of some pipes falling in the background. And obviously it's the Death Riders continuing to beat down Orange Cassidy. They have a funnel in his mouth and they're about to pour some kind of chemical into his mouth. But FTR comes out and smacks it out of Moxley's hand before they can do anything. And then they kind of have a face off. And one of them has kind of a pipe in their hand, and the Death Riders think better of the situation and kind of back away, with Moxley kind of smirking as they back off. We then go to our next match, which is a Continental Classic match where Kyle Fletcher actually upsets Kazuchika Okada via pinfall when he takes advantage of the ref being recovering from being knocked down. He hits a low blow and then hits the brainbuster. And this actually builds Fletcher's Blue League lead with 9 points and Okada still only has 4. So Okada not out of it per se, but Fletcher really building his lead and seems to be the favorite kind of coming out of the Blue League at this point, because I think he really only has to win one more match and he's guaranteed a spot in the kind of tournament semifinals that'll happen at World's End. We then get the Beast Muertos. He squashes Aaron Solo. He's in the Continental Classic, but for some reason they give him a random out of tournament squash match here. But he hits him with the discus lariat to kind of finish things off. Renee is in with Top Flight. Layla Gray wants to know what the hell all that was on Dynamite this past week. Darius knows it was every man for himself, but why were Action Andretti and Leo Rush in their own matching gear? Rushton says it's up to them to chase the tag titles, not Top Flight. Andretti takes issue with Dante's tone. Layla then says if they want to fight, they can do it. They can't do it here. Andrade says they clearly need Andretti, sorry, is what I meant to say. Says they clearly need to settle all of this in the ring. So Leo Rush and Andretti will take on Top Flight at some point in the near future. We then get Mina Shirakawa. She defeats Emi Sakura via pinfall with a top rope sling blade. Renee is then with Daniel Garcia and Mark Briscoe. She talked to them last night after Rampage. Briscoe still has 0 points. Ask how he will close that gap. Briscoe says this is the first time this year he can be difficult for people. Says this time can be difficult for people this time of year. I mean, same as last year at this point. He's stuck on 0. Maybe he sucks at Continental Classics. No, he just needs to apply himself. He needs the W, so no hard feelings. Garcia likes that he stays positive. He likes that he doesn't stay down, but Garcia does the same. He'll have to knock him down, and he'll give him everything he's got. And then in the main event, Mark Briscoe gets off the 0 points and defeats Daniel Garcia via pinfall following a cutthroat driver. This gives Briscoe 3 points, of course, in the Blue League, while Garcia stays at 4. The Fletcher-Okada Continental Classic match would be the best match of the show for me on this one, so definitely check that one out if you haven't seen Collision yet. But, definitely, like I said, all the Continental Classic matches are solid, but overall, I would say that Fletcher-Okada match was the top one from Collision for me. We'll then go to NXT's Deadline. We open with the men's Iron Survivor, where the returning Obafemi wins, taking the place of the injured Eddie Thorpe. But he gets his second and third pinfall in the match, hitting a double choke slam on Nathan Frazier and Wes Lee and pinning them both at the same time. So he got 3 falls, and I believe there were 2 or 3 guys that had 2. So, big return. He is going to get a title shot against Trick Williams at some point in the near future. We then get Lexus King. He was shown walking the streets of the freezing cold Minneapolis night. King says this city has a place in his heart because this is the city where he was left out on the side of the road in the freezing cold with no role model to speak of. King says he's trying to prove he's not the same and he's different and he'll exceed beyond everything he did, obviously referring to his late father, Brian Pillman. King says he still struggles, but it's a fight worth fighting for, and it's worth it to be out here feeling the cold chill on his skin. King says that nothing feels better than the warm air of satisfaction that he will hopefully have in the near future. We then get Lola Vice. She defeats Jada Parker via submission in the NXT Underground match, basically making her pass out to kind of a unique choke that she had locked in. We then get Fraxium retaining their NXT tag team titles against the No Quarter Catch crew of Miles Bourne and Tavion Heights when Axiom caught Bourne in an inside cradle. We then get Javon Evans in the back kind of talking to Sarah about not quite pulling it out in the Iron Survivor, but only needing a few more seconds to possibly tie it up with Obafemi. Wesley then interrupts saying Evans was acting like a fool after they all lost to Obafemi. Evans says that Lee was just salty, and then Lee said one day you'll be just like me. And Evans said he didn't think so, and Lee then delivered a right hand, and then security shows up to kind of break them up. We then get Trick Williams defeating Ridge Holland via pinfall with a trick shot to retain his NXT championship. We then get Ethan Page shown backstage saying it took him 4 matches in NXT to become NXT champion. He turned NXT into NXMe. Page then recapped what happened and was frustrated, saying that he dropped the ball once again in the Iron Survivor. Says it took him 18 years to get here to win the championship, but it also took him 18 years to figure it out that he has no clue how to get back there. Page then walked away, seemingly frustrated with himself and his situation. We then get Ava. She's with Sarah backstage getting interviewed. Ava put Wesley versus Javon Evans on NXT this Tuesday. Evans said that the first NXT of the new year is New Year's Evil, and it will be in Los Angeles on January 7th. Tiffany Stratton then showed up with her Money in the Bank briefcase. Said maybe she'll be in Los Angeles, and it may be Tiffy time once again. So she's kind of teasing cashing in on Roxanne when that show comes around. So we'll see what happens there. But then we get our main event where Julia wins the Women's Iron Survivor match, winning her second fall with less than 30 seconds left after hitting the Arrivederci running knee on Zarya to get the final pin. I think it was Stephanie Vaquer was trying to get some quick pinfall victories kind of towards the end of the match, but she couldn't quite get it done. But that Women's Iron Survivor match was really good. The men's was also very good as well, but I would give the edge to women's for the night. But the NXT Tag Team title match was also very good. You know, anytime you get Nathan Frazier and Axiom out there, pretty much no matter who they're up against, they're going to have one of the more entertaining matches of the night. But for tonight, I would give the women the heads up on the matches for the match of the night on Deadline. We'll move from there to Raw. Gunther opens the show up. He says he is not happy with Finn Balor for attacking him last week. He says now Balor has his undivided attention, and then Balor and Judgment Day come out to interrupt him. Balor again takes credit for Gunther being World Heavyweight Champion and promises to win the title on Saturday at Saturday Night's Main Event. Obviously, I didn't say this at the beginning, but I'll cover Saturday Night's Main Event next week just because I had two PLEs already that I didn't really want to stack that much up with each other. But Gunther says Balor's audacity got him a title shot. And yes, when Balor won the Universal title 8 years ago, Gunther actually looked up to him. Now things are different, though, as Balor is now hanging out with weirdos in a clubhouse and taking shortcuts. 8 years ago, Balor was the best in the world for one night. Gunther is the best in the world for a long time to come. And the reality is that Balor is no longer on his level. He says the team is ready to fight, but Damian Priest then interrupts and makes the save. But Gunther actually ends up beating Damian Priest up as well. Gunther then loads up a powerbomb through the announce table, only to get sling bladed by Finn Balor. He hits the coup de grace off the apron, and Judgment Day beats down Priest as well. A trio of coup de grace leave Priest laying and the Judgment Day standing tall to end the segment. We then come back from the break, and Adam Pearce is not happy with the Judgment Day and adds Priest to the title match on Saturday. Balor isn't happy, but says it'll be more satisfying when he wins the title, pinning Priest in the process. Pearce then says that's fine with him, but he makes Balor and McDonough versus the War Raiders next week for the tag team titles, and that the rest of Judgment Day banned from ringside. We then get the final testament. They actually defeat the Wyatt Six, which was kind of an upset to me, and Karrion Kross wins the match by pinning Uncle Howdy. So don't really know what they're doing with the Wyatt Six right now. I don't think they particularly should be taking pinfall losses to the final testament, but maybe they're doing something with Kross, and they don't really have a ton of plans for Bo Dallas / Uncle Howdy. So we'll see, but definitely a weird result there for me. Kind of based about where both teams have gone in the past, but who knows? We'll see what both of them have kind of coming out of that. We then get a sit-down interview with CM Punk from earlier in the day. Punk immediately asked about the favor that Paul Heyman owes him, but he said he's going to keep it to himself. Talks about Seth Rollins, that he's willing to fight, but he is more confused by the hatred that the two have for each other. Rollins asked Punk to train him back in the day as a wrestler for free, back when Rollins was first getting started. At one point, Rollins was on the list to be fired from this company, but Punk shielded him from that and kept him on the good side of the people not getting released. Of course, if he had to live in his own shadow, he would hate himself too. Punk is better than him in every way, and now that the starter is back, Rollins, being the second string, has to sit back on the bench. So really getting in some digs there. Obviously, we're headed towards some kind of Punk Rollins match, whether that be anytime soon, or maybe they'll stretch it out to WrestleMania, because that was definitely supposed to be the match last year before Punk got hurt. So, but yeah, definitely really starting to heat up the Punk Rollins feud for sure. But then we get Liv Morgan defeating Dakota Kai via pinfall following the Oblivion after some interference from the Pure Fusion Collective. They continue to beat down Kai after the match, but Damage Control comes out after and helps run them off. And then Liv ends up hitting Oblivion on Io Sky as well before bailing. Obviously, their opponents at Saturday night's main event. So just getting a little revenge on Io there. We then get Drew McIntyre. He talks about being gone due to injuries and having to be with his family in Scotland. He then talks about seeing CM Punk, Sami Zayn, and the Usos standing tall with Roman Reigns. He said at least Punk took a bribe, but the other three just did what Roman Reigns told them to do. And he said that's why he took out Jay and Sammy last week, and now he's coming for more revenge. We then get replays of the New Day segment from last week, obviously them talking bad to Big E and kind of shitting on him. And then we get Cody Rhodes leaving Adam Pearce's office. He runs into New Day, and he tells him that they should be ashamed of themselves. We then get Seth Rollins out to talk in the ring. Rollins talks about how Punk loves to play the victim because he is a con man. He admits, yes, he did go to Punk for his initial training, and Punk helped him get a foot in the door around here. He says if that was the end of the story, Rollins' actions wouldn't make any sense. But 10 years ago, Punk walked out of WWE and he cut Rollins off. If you weren't on Team Punk, he didn't have time for you. For 10 years, Punk took shots at WWE and then failed at everything else. Now, though, he's back because the money was right. At one point, Rollins wanted to be just like Punk, but now he wants to be better. Rollins brings up getting to the WrestleMania main event, which Punk has never done. But then, obviously, Sami Zayn comes out wearing a Jey Uso Yeet shirt. Rollins says if Zayn is here to defend Punk again, they're going to end up fighting once more. Zayn apologizes for assuming that Rollins jumped Jey Uso last week, but Rollins wants to know why Zayn thought it was him. Zayn talks about how Rollins was not himself last week and was kind of going nuts, even sounding like Drew McIntyre at certain points. He said this thing with Punk brings out the worst with Rollins, and Zayn himself is going to stay out of it and just let Rollins handle what he needs to handle. And Rollins says that's exactly what he wanted and says, yes, they're good with each other. And then Rollins thinks that Zayn needs to deal with Drew as immediately as he can. Rollins then leaves, and Zayn says he's going to face McIntyre at Saturday night's main event, with the match apparently already being made by Pierce. And then as soon as Zayn goes to leave, McIntyre jumps him before the referees kind of break things up. We then get Lyra Valkyria defeating Zelina Vega and Ivy Nile when she hits the Nightwing on Ivy Nile, and this advances her to the semifinals of the Women's Intercontinental Title Tournament. We then get Damian Priest. He tells Rhea Ripley to eradicate Raquel Rodriguez tonight. We then get New Day in the back. They don't like being asked about turning on Big E because they don't see it that way. They think it was a pretty biased interview that was Kathy Kelly was trying to do. So they go to talk to the people, and Xavier Woods actually steals the camera as Kofi walks into the arena, kind of talking on the microphone. They get into the ring. Woods gives the camera back to a cameraman, and Kofi can't even barely get a word out. Kind of the Dominic Mysterio treatment that New Day's getting here. Kofi ends up getting annoyed. He says that after 10 years, the people have turned on them, and after what they did for just one day. So they can't really get much out, but seem like they're pretty pissed at the fans for turning on them so quickly for what they did last week. But then we get to our main event, which is Rhea Ripley defeating Raquel Rodriguez in an anything goes false count anywhere match, following a riptide through the table in the ring. Liv had gotten involved in certain points of the match, which also brought out Io Sky to kind of, take her out while Rhea was taking care of Raquel. And then the show closes with Rhea and Io both grabbing one side of the women's world title and kind of holding it up together to kind of end the show. obviously maybe teasing some kind of match between the two of them going forward as well. But obviously they basically just teasing that both of them want the women's world title. But the best match of Raw was absolutely that main event. It was very good. Definitely will feature in my top 5 at the end of the show. But real personal rivalry that's been going on for a while, and a really chaotic kind of brawl with weapons and stuff between the two. And then they just have really good chemistry with each other as well. So good match. We'll move from there to NXT. Julia opens things up, and she promises to win the women's title at New Year's Evil. Roxanne Perez comes out and suggests that Julia was the weakest entrant in the match. While the women's division is great, none of the women are at her level. Julia wants to fight right now, but Cora Jade obviously comes out with her kendo stick that she has seemingly all the time. And then Cora kind of implies that Julia thinks that Stephanie Vaquer is going to come out to make a save for her, but there's no question who did what happened to Stephanie Vaquer, which kind of doesn't make sense because we haven't seen anything that happened to her. But then we cut to the back and Vaquer is down, seemingly haven't been taken out. So Julia tries to fight both of them off, but eventually Kalani Jordan comes out and makes the save and sets up a tag team match for later on in the show. We then get the D'Angelo family. They feel sorry for Ethan Page. Tony D offers him a North American title shot. Ethan says that's a step down for him. And he says, so he shoots down D'Angelo's offer. And then everyone in the room kind of wants a shot since Page seemingly turned it down. And now that everyone has jumped into it, Ethan says, "Oh, okay, I'll take your offer and accept your title shot." Says if he can't win this match, then he doesn't deserve a career around here. So pretty brutal stuff there, but we'll get a North American title match between the two of them later. We then get Lexis King. He's talking to Charlie Dempsey, asking him for another Heritage Cup match. Dempsey says he'll think about it, which is enough for Lexis to kind of walk away. We'll see him again later. Dempsey then praises the rest of the No Quarter Catch crew for their efforts on Saturday, despite both coming up short, but they both really showed out in their matches. And then OTM comes in and they all kind of bicker with each other. We then get Javon Evans. He defeats Wes Lee via pinfall with his twisting top rope splash. We then get Axiom and Nathan Frazier. They kind of seem to patch things up after Saturday, and Frazier wants to make things right after Axiom did so much work in their tag team match on Saturday at Deadline. We then get video of Josh Briggs from his trip to Japan and him meeting Yoshiki Inamura, who seems to be his partner going forward. And the thing that brought them together is that they both like the hard-hitting style. So we'll see what that tag team has to offer going forward. But they were in the Battle Royal last week. I think they had some good spots, but we'll see how it kind of goes. We then get Kalani Jordan and Julia. They're mad about Stephanie Vaquer being attacked, and they say that they will swear vengeance in the main event tonight. We then get Sol Ruka and Zarya talking about the Iron Survivor Challenge before the meta girls of Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson come in and say if they had been in it, they would have won. And they kind of continue to trash talk until the segment kind of ends. We then get Hank and Tank. They defeat Igwe and DuPont when they hit the Hank and Tank Express on DuPont. And then after the match, DuPont wants to shake hands, but Igwe isn't having any of it. Kind of tying back to the Battle Royal. They had some tension throughout that. So probably going to continue that rivalry for a little bit longer, but Hank and Tank seem to be on top for this point going forward. But we'll see if they have another match in the future. We then get Obafemi. He's out for a chat. He brags about his win at Deadline, and now it's time for him to win the NXT title. And Trick Williams then comes out, obviously. But Eddie Thorpe also comes out before Trick can say anything. Thorpe says his people have been through enough and says Femi took him out last week and took his opportunity away. Femi suggests that he did not attack Thorpe, though he pretty much never really denies it, but he kind of just admits, or he says he didn't attack him, but he doesn't deny it either. But Trick says it's time for him and Femi to clash in Los Angeles. Femi says Trick is only the number one guy here because Femi allowed it. Now he is ready to take the title, and the Trick era is going to end. Femi then leaves, and Eddie Thorpe says to Trick he didn't do anything about Femi attacking him. He accuses Trick of being a manufactured sports entertainer, but Trick is sick of the doubters. The challenge is on for next week for him to face Eddie Thorpe before he faces Obafemi, and then Trick says he'll tell Ava to make the match. So we get Eddie Thorpe versus Trick, and Trick versus Oba for New Year's Evil, kind of out of this. So he'll face Thorpe next week, and then the week after he will face Obafemi. We then get Fatal Influence. They kind of talk about Gigi Dolan in the backstage, how she kind of returned recently, and she's been a thorn in their side. We then get cut to Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley. They run into Izzy Dame. Izzy threatens Dolan and says they're not done with their business that they started last week. Sean Spears, Brooks Jensen, and Nico Vanson come in, but Dame doesn't seem interested in their advances. We then get JC Jane and Jasmine Nix defeating Tatum and Gigi Dolan when Fallon Henley gets involved and knocks Paxley off the top rope, leading to JC hitting a discus forearm for the win. Fatal Influence continues their attack afterwards, and then Shotzi Blackheart, or I think she just goes by Shotzi now, but she returns and helps Gigi and Tatum run off the rest of Fatal Influence. So cool to see Shotzi back. I think she'll kind of work her way into this NXT women's division pretty well. So we'll see what she does after her return this week. We didn't get Nathan Frazier and Axiom again in the back. They both thank each other. So Axiom has gotten a match with Obafemi to avenge Nathan Frazier next week. And apparently that's all well and good, but Frazier has gotten them a tag team title defense for next week as well. So Axiom is kind of pissed, but Frazier says he can't see his face to see how pissed he really is. So Axiom is going to be pulling double duty after Frazier pulled double duty at Deadline. We'll see if they can come out of that with their tag titles once again. And we don't hear who they will face for the tag titles, but they have a defense next week. We then get Tony D'Angelo defeating Ethan Page in that North American title match via pinfall with his big spine buster. We then get Lexis King with Ryan Leaf, who is apparently impressed by King going into Minneapolis to close that chapter of his life. Charlie Dempsey then comes in and says that King can have another Heritage Cup match in 2 weeks. But first, he has to get through one of Charlie Dempsey's famed workouts, and King accepts that challenge. We then get Ethan Page. He's depressed and isn't sure he's good enough anymore. He's lost and ashamed, and he leaves still in his ring gear, seemingly headed to his car. We then get Roxanne Perez and Cora Jade defeating Julia and Kalani Jordan when Cora hits a DDT on Kalani while Julia and Roxanne are kind of battling around the outside. Stephanie Vercoeur comes in and jumps Jade and breaks the kendo stick over her leg. And then Jade is chased out of the arena at this point. And then we cut to the back for one last segment where Eddie Thorpe signs a contract for an NXT title match. And Ava says they're still looking for who attacked Eddie. But Eddie then admits that she is looking at the attacker, that he took himself out, so he didn't have to go through 5 people to get a title shot, and he got what he wanted anyways. So really cementing the heel turn there for Eddie as a conniving kind of heel. He had been leaning that way for weeks, but I think this pretty much cements him as a heel, basically manipulating his way into an NXT title match. But Wesley versus Javon Evans was definitely the best match of the week. Just 2 high flyers really going at it, really going all out. And I would love to see them get a PLE stage, maybe in the future, for maybe a title one day. Because that would be super entertaining if given a little bit more time, because it was really entertaining for the time that they were given on the TV show. So but we will go from there to Dynamite. We get the Death Riders defeating Jay White and Orange Cassidy via DQ when Hangman Page comes out and gets involved and attacks Moxley. After the match, Page hammers on Moxley some more, but Orange Cassidy pulls him off. The two of them then start fighting when Jay White accidentally ends up taking a shot and getting caught in the brawl. And then the Death Riders beat all of them down and then leave them all laying. We then get another Western-themed Bandito vignette, which was really cool and really well put together. We then get Moxley talks about being a marked man, and that means living with a knife to his throat. He wouldn't have it any other way, and now there are a bunch of people saying they want the title shot. And then the challenge is on for a 4-way match between Jay White, Orange Cassidy, Hangman Page, and himself at World's End. Christian Cage, sitting in a skybox with his world title contract, says he doesn't like 4-ways because he doesn't like any of the guys involved. He promises to jump anyone, including Moxley, whom he will send back to rehab, apparently. As Cage goes to leave his skybox, Hook breaks in and attempts to choke out Cage, but then he's able to fight away from it, and the rest of his family comes in and kind of saves him from getting attacked too much further. So, Christian laying out that he's getting closer and closer to cashing in his title shot, but Hook attacked him there, but his patriarchy family kind of saves him towards the end. We then get Will Ospreay defeating Claudio Castagnoli via pinfall with a jackknife cover. This ties both of them atop the Gold League with 6 points. So, and then Claudio attacks Will after the match until Darby Allin makes the save. So Claudio and Will are both tied at the top of the Gold League. We then get Ricochet, says he's here for matches like the one he has tonight against Brody King. Even though King is a monster, he's not Ricochet. He pulls out MVP's business card and says tonight he is the one holding all the cards. We then get MJF arriving at the building. We then get Matt Cardona interviewed by Renee, says he's ready to face Chris Jericho at Final Battle, and he'll face Brian Keith this Friday on Rampage. We then get Kyle O'Reilly. He is ready to face Adam Cole tonight, but the Kingdom come in to say that they are all still family. O'Reilly says they should have remembered that before one of them got hurt. Adam Cole then defeats Kyle O'Reilly via pinfall with a small package after a slight distraction from MJF. Cole then offers a handshake to O'Reilly afterwards, but Kyle once again declines and walks away. We then get FTR cutting the same promo, basically that they did on Collision, kind of talking about Asheville, North Carolina, and helping rebuild it by raising money for the Fight for the Fallen show on January 1st. They want to be in a big match, and they have some issues with the Death Riders, so they can come talk to them when they have a minute. We then get Chris Jericho. He says he has a New York minute and accepts Matt Cardona's challenge for a match against Brian Keith on Rampage. He says tomorrow on Ring of Honor, there will be a contract signing between the two of them for Final Battle. We get a shot earlier in the day where Darby Allin talked about how he wanted to stop the Death Riders after they attacked Bryan Danielson. He is fighting for people who are here because they are getting a chance in AEW. Allin then hits himself in the mouth and draws blood from his lip and talks about how he has to win the Continental Classic to prove himself, even if there will be collateral damage along the way. We then get Ricochet defeating Brody King via pinfall following the Spirit Gun. He jumps into a tie with Ospreay and Claudio atop the Gold League at 6 points. So a lot of a pretty big log jam there at the top of the that division of the Continental Classic. We then get Leo Rush and Action Andretti interrupting Private Party. Rush and Andretti want a title shot, but Top Flight come in and ask how many matches they have actually had together or how many they've won. Private Party then suggests a number one contender match between the two teams, and it seems to be on. I'm guessing that happens on Collision, or will happen on Collision the coming weekend. Mercedes Moné and Anna Jay then have a stare down, but we need to talk about Mercedes Moné defending her New Japan Strong Women's title this weekend. Moné shifts over to Jay, who is 26 years old and just getting started. That makes Moné chuckle because when she was 26, she was already a 5-time champion. Jay then cuts her off from leaving and says that all she needs is one mistake for Moné to become champion. And then we end our show with the Women's World Title match where Mariah May defeats Mina Shirakawa via pinfall following the Storm Zero. And then after the match, no longer timeless, but Toni Storm back in her kind of punk gear with her backwards hat and the little eye black under her eye, returns, kind of skater girl look, comes back, and they kind of they don't really battle, but they kind of face off, and Mariah May is kind of stunned, and they kind of stare each other down to end the show. But the best match from Dynamite for me was Claudio versus Will Ospreay. Definitely two awesome guys in the ring, and pretty much anytime, like I've always said, anytime Ospreay's in the ring, it's usually going to be one of the better matches of the week. So really good stuff there. But we'll move to Impact from there. Moose gets things going for the night. He says ever since he won the X Division title, the question has been, what is he going to do with the title? He's going to make it the most important title around here, which is what has happened since he became champion. People aren't talking about Nick Nemeth or Joe Hendry, and they certainly aren't talking about the Hardys because they're too busy chanting his name, talking about the Moose thing that they used to do during his entrance music. The reality is he doesn't need the people because he is going to be the greatest X Division champion in TNA history. Cody Deaner comes out to interrupt, saying he lost his love for wrestling, but the people led him back in the right direction. Deaner says he can beat Moose if he has the people behind him. So so he challenges him to a match right now. Moose knocks him down, orders a ref to the ring, and says the match needs to happen right now. And then Moose obviously defeats Cody Deaner via pinfall following a spear. We then get First Class and Tasha Steelz, First Class being AJ Francis and Casey Navarro. They say tonight's main event will be a preview of their dominance at Final Resolution, and the Top Dollar promises a bunch of choke slams to be unleashed tonight. We then get the Northern Armory of Sinner and Saint and Josh Alexander. They interrupt Mike Santana, and they kind of bicker back and forth. And Alexander and Santana will both be in a number one contenders fatal four-way at Final Resolution. So they both kind of promise that they're going to win that one. We then get Rosemary defeating Xia Brookside via pinfall with the As Above, So Below. Post-match, Rosemary kind of hammers on Brookside until Jordan Grace comes out and makes the save. Trent Seven is not happy that he is being put in a match against Ace Austin at Final Resolution. Austin then comes in and promises to get revenge on Trent Seven for turning on Mike Bailey like he did. When they get the Rascals, they defeat Leon Slater and Laredo Kid when they hit a double stomp inverted Death Valley driver combo. PCO and Sami Callihan then defeat Jake Something and Hammerstone via DQ when Hammerstone smacks PCO with a chair. PCO and Sammy then run them off, and the cryptic number 23 pops up on the screen once again. We then go to another match where Danny Luna defeats Heather by Elegance via pinfall following a fireman's carry into a powerbomb. And then we get a main event match where Nick Nemeth, Joe Hendry, and Masha Slamovich defeat First Class of Casey Navarro and AJ Francis and Tasha Steelz when Nemeth hits a danger zone on Navarro. And then post-match, the women kind of fight, and then Top Dollar spears Nick Nemeth and then hits 3 back-to-back down payments, which is his choke slam, which leaves Nemeth laying on the ground to end the show. The best match on Impact for me was that Rascals versus Slater and Laredo tag team match. But yeah, really just kind of setting up Final Resolution, which I'll talk about in a minute. But solid episode of Impact. But we'll go from there to SmackDown, get through that real quick so we can get to Final Resolution. Jimmy Uso opens the show. He has a broken toe from Survivor Series, so he has a crutch. He said War Games didn't get him, but it did get his toe. War Games meant everything to him because even though he fights with his family, they fight together and throw up the ones. So now that that's behind him, what is in front of him? He and his family have been doing this thing for years, and they have been pretty successful. He's even proud of his brother Jey Uso and the Yeet. He said, then there's Solo Sikoa, who might not like who he might not like all the time, but he's proud of him too. He asked what's next for him, it meaning Jimmy. He says he's not sure. He maybe wins the Royal Rumble, maybe goes for the U.S. title, maybe even goes for the WWE title. He may have one big toe, but he's here. And then so is Drew McIntyre, who claymores him out of nowhere to end the segment. So kind of weird. Didn't have much heat. Jimmy's not quite as over as the rest of his family, I'll say. Don't see him winning the Royal Rumble or contending for the WWE title anytime soon, but they may throw him a kind of a just give him the U.S. title for a little bit just to say that they did, but I don't see him really contending for either of those other two things anytime soon. We didn't get Tiffany Stratton. She was looking pretty hachi-machi in this segment. She was wearing a very Christmas-themed outfit, but she was kind of warming up when Candice LeRae and Nia Jax come in, give her a pep talk before her women's U.S. title tournament match. We then get Nick Aldis. He's yelling at Drew McIntyre when Bianca Belair and Naomi come in. Aldis tells McIntyre to stay in his office and then tells Belair she is going to have to relinquish her tag team titles. Naomi then offers to step in and be her partner now that Jade is gone or has been taken out. And then Aldis kind of reluctantly agrees to give Jade's title to Naomi. And they have to be ready to defend the titles as early as next week. So they don't really say who it's against, but have them prepared to face somebody. We then get Michin. She defeats Tiffany Stratton via pinfall following the defeat, which gets Michin into the finals of the Women's U.S. title tournament that'll happen on Saturday night's main event. We then get DIY. They cut like a NWO type promo in the black and white, kind of in an old abandoned room. They talk about how they got cheated in Gargano's hometown out of the tag titles, but he promised to do whatever it took to set things right. Then the Motor City Machine Guns were handed a path to the titles. So last week, Gargano did what he needed to do to get the titles back, and it was a lot of fun doing so. We then get Roman Reigns with Paul Heyman, talks about how this has been a rough year. They were running everything not too long ago, but then they lost everything. He says 4 years ago, Solo Sikoa wasn't here when Roman Reigns earned everything, and that's why he wants Tribal Combat on January 6th on the Netflix Raw premiere, where he can take everything back and everyone can acknowledge him. So they're basically going to have a Tribal Combat match for the Ula Fala, which kind of symbolizes who the Tribal Chief really is. We then get Legado del Fantasma. They complain to Nick Aldis about every one of them being attacked. So maybe they should go to Raw so they don't have to worry about anything like that. Aldis says, go call Raw. And then Carmelo Hayes comes in where he is told he will find out who he is facing in the ring tonight. And then we have his match next where Braun Strowman is his opponent, and Braun Strowman defeats him via pinfall following the running power slam. We then get LA Knight. He's always ready to handle his business and didn't want to get involved in war games when he was asked to. He says that wasn't his business, but now Solo Sikoa has gotten into his business and in the way of his U.S. title. And that's why tonight Sikoa's face is going to get in the way of his fist. So good little promo there by LA Knight. LA Knight then defeats Solo Sikoa via DQ when Jacob Fatu gets involved. Post-match, the beatdown is on, and then Apollo Crews and Andrade try to save LA Knight, but they both fail as they get kind of taken out by the bloodline. We then get Braun Strowman walking around in the back. He runs into Pretty Deadly, who offer him a spot in their musical. He says musicals really aren't his thing. We then get Pretty Deadly kind of sauntering off, and then A-Town Down Under comes up and offers him a spot to appear in the Grayson Waller effect next week, and Braun kind of seemingly accepts that offer. We then get Chelsea Green defeating Bayley via pinfall with the Unpretty Her to advance to the finals of the U.S. Women's Title Tournament. So it'll be Chelsea Green versus Michin to see who the first one of those is, first champion of the Women's U.S. Title is. The Motor City Machine Guns then cut a promo and are not happy with DIY and says they can't believe that Johnny Gargano did to them what they did last week. Shelley says something about teaching the student what the teacher really knows and tells them that it's a fight, and Gargano will learn what that means next week. We then get Shinsuke Nakamura talking about how there has been a shift, which will see the week dragged into the light. LA Knight had something he never deserved and will never get it again. So Shinsuke kind of cutting some more cryptic promos. We then get Nia Jax. She consoles Tiffany Stratton, but Candice LeRae comes in and says she has gotten Candice and Nia a women's tag team title shot next week, And then Nia Jax leaves, and Candice LeRae tells Stephanie Stratton she just might not be a singles wrestler. So kind of continuing to put a rift in that relationship. We then get Michael Cole. He brings out Cody Rhodes in the show kind of for a chat to talk about Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens pretty immediately cuts off the interview where he's sitting in his car on the screen. Owens says he can't believe how Rhodes is willing to use his friends to finish his story. The reality is Rhodes is as bad of a friend as he is a son and a brother. The other reality is that Rhodes was always more interesting as Stardust. Rhodes knows Owen has more zingers up his sleeve, so goes back to deal with him in person in the back. Owens says then once Cody kind of gets to the back, Owens jumps him as he comes around a curtain. They then fight into the arena and into the ring, and security breaks it up, and Owens ends up actually getting a belt shot to end the show. So just more hype towards the Saturday Night's Main Event show that will happen the next night. But Solo versus LA Knight, despite it ending in a DQ, was probably match of the night for me. Both of the women's tournament matches were solid, but I would definitely give the leg up to that LA Knight versus Solo Sikoa match, which was interesting before the DQ happened. And then we'll end our week with Final Destination. I keep calling it that. Final Resolution for TNA. We open with an X Division title match where Moose defeats Kushida via pinfall following a spear. We then get Gia Miller with First Class, obviously Casey Navarro and AJ Francis. Like I said, Casey says people don't believe in AJ Francis, but tonight everyone will. They're all about the money, but later on they will be all about the gold. AJ says he's worked his entire career for this moment. He's going to become world champion tonight and slam Nemeth through the TNA logo in the middle of the ring. That he's the biggest, baddest man walking and talking around here. The world is his, and everything in it will also be his. We then get the Rascals. They defeat Sammy Callahan and PCO and Jake Something and Hammerstone when they hit an assisted double stomp on Something. The Rascals and PCO and Sammy shake hands after the match, and then again the lights go out and the 23 pops on the screen once again. But obviously no one comes out, so we still don't know who that might be. We then get Ace Austin defeating Trent Seven via pinfall following the 1-2 sweet, which is kind of a swinging neck breaker. We then get Kazarian. He reflects on his win on the pre-show over Jonathan Gresham tonight. He says TNA has been trending this year because of him. Kazarian says he's going to keep a close eye on the world title match later, and he wants to end things this year on a high note as atop the throne of TNA as world champion. We then get Rosemary versus Jordan Grace, but it ends in a no contest when the returning Tessa Blanchard attacks Jordan Grace in the middle of the match, and it just kind of ends there. So no real resolution to that Rosemary Jordan Grace kind of rivalry, but Tessa Blanchard back calling out. And she actually gets interviewed by Gia Miller next. Tessa says she had to remind people who built this company, and she's back to take what is hers. And then she kind of shoves Gia to end the interview. We then get Joe Hendry. He defeats Josh Alexander, Steve Macklin, and Mike Santana to become the number one contender for the TNA World title at Genesis when he hits the standing ovation on Alexander. We then get Nick Nemeth getting interviewed. He is happy that Final Resolution is finally here. Francis thinks it's practically already his championship, and now Hendry is officially the number one contender, and people are already thinking it will be Francis versus Hendry. Nemeth says he's the man here, and he always will be. He proves how good he is every single night, and it's going to stay that way. He is the best TNA world champion of all time and will continue to be. We then get Masha Slamovich. She defeats Tasha Steelz via pinfall with the Requiem piledriver on the ramp. It was a false count anywhere match. We then get the Hardys. They defeat the System in a tables match when Jeff last eliminates Eddie Edwards with a swanton from the balcony, kind of callback to the old Royal Rumble 2000 spot where he hits the swanton off of the balcony there. But pretty cool spot and a solid match with a good bit of chaos between those four guys. And then in the main event, Nick Nemeth defeats AJ Francis via pinfall following the Danger Zone. And then First Class continues the attack after the match. only for Hendry to make the save, and then they kind of face off to hype the Genesis main event next month. So solid show throughout, no doubt. You kind of look at Nemeth versus AJ Francis, and it doesn't really scream, exciting main event or anything like that to you. But I think given the two guys in the match and, how limited AJ is, I think it ended up being, kind of exceeding expectations. I still won't say it was a great match or anything like that, but it was better than I ever thought it would be going in. So solid main event. But that Fatal 4-Way was a very good match, and I would definitely check it out if you were so lucky to have the TNA Plus app. But definitely a solid show without a doubt. And, anytime Masha can get involved, and especially in a Falls Count Anywhere match like they had, definitely a solid output usually by her. And then, like I said, that tables match was solid as well. But we will get to the TV match rankings for the week. Every match is a Continental Classic match except one, which number one is the Rhea Ripley versus Raquel Rodriguez match from Raw. Thought it was, it had the most story. It had a lot of story to it. They've been building towards that one for a while. It was a good brawl. So had some really good stuff in it. So definitely match of the week for me. Claudio versus Ospreay would be the best Continental Classic match for me. And then Fletcher versus Okada, Briscoe versus Okada, and then Briscoe versus Garcia are 3, 4, and 5 respectively. And then as far as pay-per-view match rankings, the top 3 are going to be from NXT, and then the bottom 2 will be from the TNA show. But the Women's Iron Survivor, the NXT Tag, and the Men's Iron Survivor are 1, 2, and 3 for me. And then 4 and 5, I put the 4-way number 1 contender match from Final Resolution, and then the tag team tables match as well, as I thought they were both very, very good. But 2 solid PLEs, maybe not the greatest ones in the world or anything like that, but definitely solid contest throughout, and could have put a whole list of different 5 matches there. But the Women's Iron Survivor and the NXT Tag were definitely the 2 best matches of a pay-per-view / PLE of the week for me, for sure. But 3, 4, and 5 could have been a whole host of different things. But as usual, thank you for listening to me. Like I said, next week I'll cover the Saturday night's main event that happened this weekend. Just, I didn't want to have to do 3 special shows in one, but we'll talk about that next time. But thank you as always for joining me. We'll see you next time.